We were meant to discuss the killing of Saleh Al-Arouri, Hamas's deputy leader in Lebanon, on this show tonight. But in just the last few hours, we've had the big breaking news coming in from Iran, where more than 100 people have been killed at an anniversary event that was meant to commemorate the 4th death anniversary of top Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani, as we know that he was killed in a US drone attack in 2020. My question to you, Colonel Aysin, and to the rest of the panel is simply this. We've seen in the last few days that Musavi is killed in Syria, correct me if I'm wrong, but by the US forces. Arouri is killed in Lebanon. Israel has not confirmed it, but it is widely believed that it is Israel indeed. And today, blasts have been reported in Iran, at this Soleimani anniversary event. Are we seeing a pattern here? Is this Israel's new war strategy? Has Israel decided to go after the Hamas, Hezbollah, and Quds network?
I think not, Neha. In this case, I would not compare the two targeted killings of whoever takes responsibility of a very top Iranian commander who was responsible for the entire relationship of bringing in weapons and capabilities from the Islamic regime of Iran to Hezbollah, sitting in Damascus. He was killed. As you mentioned, Saleh Al-Arouri was killed last night in Lebanon. Neither one do we have clear claims of responsibility, but that's the kind of thing that academically I would call targeting top echelon terrorists who have openly been involved in both the recruiting of terrorists, training of terrorists, bringing in money in a vast different way. The attack, as both of us are following it right now, of what happened in Iran, and yes, it's happened in Iran, but it's what we would call a terror attack. This was against civilians. They were going out to commemorate Soleimani, who, I don't want to be sarcastic about it, but Soleimani was an arch-terrorist as far as I'm concerned, but attacking crowds of people in a ceremony of a funeral is not the same kind of thing as targeting top terrorists. So I don't compare the three. I think that Iran has its own challenges of its own population who protest that same terrorist Islamic regime, and that this kind of attack that took place in the heart of Iran at a funeral memorial ceremony near the cemetery where Qasem Soleimani is buried, this is something that, as I look from the outside, domestic, going against that Islamic regime.
All right, Itai Melchior, is this a mere coincidence? Or are these events of the past few days clearly linked? Israel has said time and again that we will go after our enemies no matter where they are. Many Israeli leaders and defense officials have even named specific countries in the Arab world, saying we are not going to leave any stone unturned. Now, here on the show tonight, we're talking about more than 100 people who've been killed in twin blasts in Iran. These are people who were commemorating Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a US drone strike 4 years ago. We're talking about how it is believed Israel carried out a strike near Beirut in Lebanon and killed Saleh Al-Arouri, the number 2 or at least a very high profile figure in Hamas. And very recently, you also had the assassination of Iranian commander Sayyid Musavi in Syria. Again, suspected involvement of Israel there. I mean, are we to really understand that these are all unrelated events?
I think my colleague Colonel Aysin said it all. I will not confirm, I cannot confirm or nor deny that Israel was involved in those targeted killings, but I would actually put money on Israel not being involved in what happened in Iran today. This is not the Israeli way. Yes, we have vowed to fight our enemies. Yes, we will attack infrastructure which is used against Israel. But this is not the Israeli way to attack innocent civilians just for the fun of it. I mean, it's no purpose. We do know that Iran is marred with a big opposition, which is very unhappy with the leadership. And Soleimani was part of the leadership. So it does make sense that some terrorist organization would do this. Again, vile and totally uncalled for. We have no death wish for any Iranian civilian. They have not done us any harm. And as you said, we target military targets and try to do so very surgically, as you mentioned. Both the incidents you mentioned, both in Syria and in Lebanon, were people who were very much involved in arms smuggling, in management. Al-Aruri was also the commander for Hamas for Judea and Samaria, also called the West Bank. And one of his targets was to turn the relatively peaceful, living side by side Palestinian Authority with Israel into a Gaza-like area, something which is very negative, and that's why his name has been up there in the list of people that are doing very, very bad actions and should be stopped. So no one in Israel has lost a tear on that.
Okay, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, let me come to you, sir. Do you buy what our Israeli guests are saying, that these events are completely unrelated? Because if you look at it, many would argue that there seems to be a pattern emerging here, and not only is Israel fighting Hamas in Gaza, it seems to be going after the Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah and Quds axis. And now it's very clear that the war is no longer confined to just Gaza. At least that is what many would argue.
Thank you, Neha, for inviting me. Now, it is not for us to aggregate or disaggregate what's happened in the course of last few days. There is a talk of IDF going in for phase 3 of the operation. Phase 1 being Gaza City, phase 2 being Khan Yunis, and phase 3 being creation of that buffer zone and targeted killings of people who are been involved into this one. So while Israel is not owned up for the killing of Musawi in Syria or of Arouri in Lebanon, but the fact is that what matters is perceptions. What are the global perceptions on this issue? In the killing of this Lebanese in Lebanon, there has been tweets here to say that Israel had not informed United States about this killing. And while the operation was on, the United States representatives were told that this operation is on. This is all available on X, which is X-Twitter. So, there are perceptions being created all across saying that both of these were Israeli killings. And I don't want to aggregate and accept it or not accept it, because we are just, truth is the first casualty in war. Nobody says the truth at all. So we can't say who has done it, but the perceptions are this. Now, the third event which you are referring to, the one in Iran, is even more serious. When 4 years ago, Soleimani was hit and killed on 3rd of January 2000, I think.
2020, exactly 4 years ago.
2020, 4 years ago. There were 2 missiles, and it was stated to be United States which had targeted it. And the Iranians had responded to this strike by hitting the bases of the United States in Iraq. And that was immediate response that the Iranians had done. Now, if the perceptions are such, and Soleimani was also disliked all over the world on various counts, because as overseas representative of the Quds or the IRGC, or overseas worker, but the fact is that there is, he was respected in his own country as a military leader and an effective one that way. So if whatever happens in this case, it will be blamed again on the doorsteps of United States or Israel. Even if they're not done, even if it's an internal matter, the perceptions will be carried and they would be responsive. I'll also add one more issue here. the targeting of Uri in Lebanon, in the suburbs of Beirut, that's actually a Hezbollah suburb, and which the place was given. And Uri had met, this fellow Nasrullah in October, 2 months ago, when Nasrullah had visited Beirut from Qatar when he'd come. So, he was a senior figure in this whole game. When you hit in an area which is actually Hezbollah area, in Beirut, there is an obvious spread. And Hezbollah is an army. They say they have a force of 150,000. God alone knows, nobody can count how many they have. And they would have about 100,000 rockets. Again, you can't be sure as what is the truth. But the fact is that, the Israeli representative or the spokesperson has said that we are prepared for a response from Lebanon, from Hezbollah side, means that they are prepared to accept that the Iron Dome will face a lot of bunch of these rockets flying in. Overwhelm Iron Dome, as Iron Dome got overwhelmed on 7th of October. So the fact is that this is possibility of expansion, possibility of conflagration in the region exists here, and I think it's not a fair idea. And I'll end by saying that this Congo thing, they copied all these immigrants that went to UK and they are now being transported to Rwanda. And then South Africa is now fighting something against Israel for saying for humanitarian killings, etc. There is a distaste going across. There's an anger and anguish across large number of nations here. Also because their buffer zone is being created inside Gaza Strip. Now, if you take 60% of Gaza land and
What
create
is
it buffer,
left for
once
the
they,
2.3
it will be
million
difficult.
people? Exactly.
Where would the two exactly? And to say that they can be sent to Congo, Congo is already in fire for quite some years.
Yes.
So how are we going to happen? And Congo has got United Nations force happening there. So I think this conflagration, instead of controlling the issue, it is spreading beyond imagination, and it's not a good idea.